Okay, so my loving lately, do not laugh at me.
I might, but
You might. It's
welcome to Book Talk Etc., a podcast bound to grow your TBR. I'm Tina from TBR Etc.
And I'm Hannah from Handpicked Books.
And this is a conversational podcast about books and more from two Midwest mood readers who are easily distracted by new releases. And today we are talking about book annotation.
If you enjoy listening, we'd love for you to follow us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And if you have a quick minute, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing us on social media. It truly helps us connect with other book lovers.
Hey everyone, it's the start of a new month, so we wanted to take the time to invite you to join us on Patreon. Patreon is an online membership platform that gives you a way to financially support our podcast. And for $5 a month, you get access to all of our bonus content. By becoming a Patreon member, you'll get access to our new bonus content, our backlist bonus content, and a membership to our Patreon community. So if you've ever wanted your reading to be more of a social experience, this is the way to do it. It is a great way to find that connection. Each month, members get 2 bonus episodes and 1 recorded event, as well as invites to our BTE Discord server and Facebook group. We also host a monthly community read in our Discord page. This month, we're releasing another episode of Niche Novels. We are sharing a Summer Bonanza wrap-up discussion where we'll talk through what we thought of our Summer Bonanza books. And we are hosting another bookstore browse where we'll chat with a bookseller who talks us through their store and gives personalized book recommendations to patrons. If this sounds like something you are interested in, head to patreon.com/booktalk/etc. or look for the link in our show notes. And thank you so much for your support. Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Tina, how are you?
I'm great. Look at my top. What would you look at my shirt? It
Oh, one of the t-shirts that you said you got several of.
I did. No, I got one of these for me. It says
perfect.
Salem Book Club.
Nice.
Because it's still August, and yet I think in my head it's fall, but I'm wearing it, babe. I'm wearing it, and I am excited. Kids are back in school. Well, the kid is back in school. What's going on over by you?
We are good. My daughter is back in school, and that has been a transition, but also a nice change of pace. And I'm starting to feel, no chill in the air yet with this freaking 90-degree plus heat. But
Truly.
I am starting to get in the fall spirit, and I am excited for the chill to be in the air with this back to school stuff. So
exactly. I know I'm ready. And Hannah's got a lovely burnt orange sweatshirt on again today.
Now, I'm always wearing a crew neck like every single week, but at least I've got a fall color now.
It is. It's lovely. Yes. Very good. Well, I'm going to hop in and this is actually a perfect transition because I'm excited about all things fall. And a part of that excitement for me is football. I love football. I'll watch it. I like Red Zone. I like fantasy. I like it all. Primarily pro football. I don't do a lot of college, but pro football is for me. I'm in 3 fantasy leagues this year. So when I like something, I have to really go all in. And this includes my Loving Lately, because my Loving Lately has me getting especially hyped for football. It's Hard Knocks Training Camp with Chicago Bears. And this is on Max, aka HBO. Currently, as I'm recording, there's 4 episodes. There will be 5, and the finale ends the week the season starts because this is all about training camp. And I'm, of course, in Chicago. I'm a big Bears fan, so I'm extra excited that this one centers on the Bears. But I really think this show is interesting enough to watch. Even if you're a fan of a different team, I think you probably should be a football fan to get the most out of it. It's reminding me a bit of America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys version about the cheerleaders. It's that sort of vibe, but for the pro football players. What you get is a behind-the-scenes look at what all goes into planning an NFL team, what happens behind the scenes. You get to see these guys who are just about to make it. They're desperately trying to make the final team. You've got high highs and heartbreak and humor. There's fun hazing rituals that they have, and it really made me laugh at one of these parts. What's exciting about the Bears this year is we have the number 1 draft pick. He's a quarterback named Caleb Williams, and you get to see all of the hype that surrounds him. I am getting chills thinking about it. I'm so nervous, but really excited. You also get to see a player live on the show. He's in anyway, I won't spoil it, but he gets signed. He signs the contract for their highest paid player in Bears history. And like, it's totally different, the experience, than what I was expecting or what I envisioned. There's also a fun tie-in for Olympic gymnastics fans because Simone Biles' husband, Jonathan Owens, is on the Bears. You get to see him talk about going to the Olympics, and like the coach answers why they let him go. There's a little appearance by Simone via the phone, and I was like, of course, dying. Overall, I have been loving it. Bring it on. It's Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears on Max.
Nice. You had me with the Simone Biles tie-in.
Got it. You know what? And I was like, I'm going to bring it in for the girls
Good
here.
call for the girls. Yes,
somewhere.
for sure.
Let's get a wider audience. Yes.
For the non-football besties out there.
There you
yeah.
go.
Well, good pick. I love how into sports and stuff you were. It's been fun getting to know you more as we've, worked through the podcast for a longer period of time now. I didn't know that you were such a sports fan before.
Yes.
And yeah, I love that. That's so fun.
Thank God, because my husband plays flag football. He plays, in the police league. So thankfully I am a fan of sports. It would be really rough if I wasn't.
And me and my husband over here, just the complete opposite. I don't think you could pay him to watch a football game outside of the Super Bowl. And I could kind of take it or leave it. I would say that I like sports more than Dustin does.
Okay.
Just because I like the community and like the camaraderie and the teamwork and like
the
I
snacks
love that.
and the sport and the outfit
and hanging out at I like if you invite me to hang out, I'm like, yes. We're going to a baseball game. I don't care. I want to hang out and have a beer. Mm-hmm. So I'm totally more like, I like it and enjoy it and can see the value in it. So.
Got you. Well, someday. Maybe we'll watch a ball game together.
A ball game. Fun. Maybe you'll come to the Cubs game.
Oh my gosh, you've got to. It's really fun.
Season. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so my loving lately, do not laugh at me.
I might, but.
You might. It's cucumbers. Okay,
stop it. Oh my God, this is so great. Okay, tell me more.
I'm finally going to talk about like all of the ways that I have been using and consuming cucumbers.
Please tell me.
I do have some links to share as well. So basically, I saw this video on TikTok, and I will link it, of this beauty influencer and lifestyle influencer doing gua sha with cucumbers. And she had normally just used ice. And that is something that I had been doing too, is using ice. And she said someone had told her, her dermatologist was like, you want the cheapest way to like take care of your skin and just like, take care of your face in the morning and drain all of your, what is that called?
The lymphatic drainage.
Yes. I was going to say lymph nodes.
That's
but the lymphatic drainage. Yes, exactly. So she was like, use a cucumber instead of ice. It'll do wonders. And Dustin's been making fun of me because, I'm just like in the kitchen in the morning, like, rubbing ice cucumbers on my face. But then, and he got to actually see it a couple times too, which I was so happy because I got to be like, yes, I started getting compliments on my skin. And like during work meetings and like even my family came over to visit and they were like, you are like glowing. Like your skin looks so good.
You're like, say less.
Say less. I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so, and I have noticed I get a lot of acne kind of around like my chin line, especially depending on like certain times of like the month and things like that. Like my skin will change, as I think most, women do, but this has like completely taken care of that. So I have no like bumps or acne along my like jawline anymore. And then the journey continues.
It doesn't stop there.
It doesn't stop there because then you have Logan on TikTok, who is like the famous cucumber influencer. They had that like original video go viral of the cucumber recipe with vinegar and the soy sauce and the momofuku chili paste. And I loved it. And I eat it every single day. That's the original like cucumber recipe.
Ooh.
Well, I eat it every single day for now until I get sick of it. But for now, I eat it every day. But he has a ton of other recipes as well. So definitely check out Logan's account and just all of the other people that are putting these like really fun and creative cucumber recipes together on TikTok. They call it the cucumber community. Join the cucumber community. We're a fun time. So anyway, that's kind of a silly loving lately, but I have been using them a lot and really enjoying these recipes. So that's my loving lately.
No, this is not silly at all. It's in the zeitgeist. Literally yesterday, Jonathan was like, "Why is everyone talking about cucumbers?" I'm like, "Oh, well, let me tell you." And I was telling him about the creator who does
Logan,
all of
yeah.
these cucumber recipes, Logan. Yes. And I need to try it. I love cucumbers. I could eat, so does Lily. I could eat one every single
Oh,
day.
nice.
My question for you about the skin cucumber, this is going to sound real stupid. Do you
No.
change? Is it a new cucumber every
Yes.
day?
So, yeah, well, no, so after I use it,
Uh-huh.
I cut the tip off of it. And then so that there's a fresh
Oh,
side of it every single day. So I just use it and then cut a little piece off
and
and
then bye
then
bye.
yeah, and then bye.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to do that. Definitely want to try that out. So
Yeah,
no loving lately is too silly. I swear to you, sometimes the best ones are the ones that I'm like,
it's
all right, no one's
random.
going to care. And then here we go. All right.
Join the cucumber community.
Join the cucumber community. Speaking of communities, our latest read is our August book talk, etc. community read. And it is We Burn Daylight by Brett Anthony Johnston. And Hannah and I are going to discuss it today. This book is based on the true events that unfolded 30 years ago during the siege of the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. And the book sets up, it starts in Waco, Texas in 1993. People from all walks of life have arrived to follow the Lamb's gospel, signing over savings and pensions, selling homes, shedding marriages to move here. And they've come to worship at the feet of a former landscaper turned prophet who is preparing for the end times with a staggering collection of weapons. That's the setup, but the book really lasers in on, I would say, 2 to 4 characters. You have Jay, whose mother is one of this man's newest and most devout followers, and Jay herself is very suspicious of Lamb. You have Roy, who is the youngest son of the local sheriff, a 14-year-old boy with a heart of gold and a nose for trouble, and he falls for Jay without knowing that she's a part of this compound. And so, of course, these 2 teenagers falling for each other is really problematic for them because they're on opposite sides of this incredible tension. They are drawn to each other immediately and completely, but, and I'm going to leave out part of the synopsis, but their love may have dire consequences for their families. So, as of this recording, Hannah and I have not yet chatted with our patrons. That's tonight. We are going to do our text based book club through Discord with them. Right now, I'm landing at a tentative 4 stars. And
Hmm.
Hannah and I have not chatted yet either. So, where did you land for this?
I would say a tentative 4 stars as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
And I think that part of that is that it wasn't even because of the book. I think partially, Tina, you made a point earlier that I was just doing audio and I didn't have the print book in front of me. I think that that would have helped me enjoy it
Hmm.
better. I also think that I am someone who really appreciates and enjoys context. And I didn't really have the time, I feel like, to fully research the context of
Yep.
this story. And I'm wondering if when I do so, because I know that I will, if I might enjoy it and appreciate it more.
Hmm. I hear you. And I was having that same trouble. So I really liked the idea of this. I thought it was such a smart way to fictionalize what happened during the Waco siege. But I have no idea. I have no frame of reference for this. I didn't know this happened, which sounds terrible, but I didn't know about it. And I realized as I was reading, maybe a third of the way in, I'm like, I need to Google because what is happening? Y'all know
Hmm.
I love books, though, that make me Google. So I'm really happy that I did that because once I had sort of an idea about what really happened, it really helped me settle into the fictionalized story. I'm going to link to the Forgotten History video that I watched. It's like 20 minutes long and it really digs in as to what happened. I'm it actually helped me understand what I was reading too, without being so
Hmm.
specific. But I thought it was very cut and dry what was going on. I thought this was a book that had a good guy and a bad guy. And as you're reading, I'm
No.
reading it and I'm like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling sympathy and empathy and what's going on? And now I understand because I know what really happened. How did you find the mixed media portion of it, the podcast? So you get the story and it's broken up by these shorter podcast episodes.
I did not find that it added a ton of value to the actual
Yeah.
story.
Hmm.
So I felt a little bit indifferent about it. How
Yeah,
about you?
same. Same here. And I usually love that. I
Me
usually
too.
love that element for whatever reason. Actually, I do know why, so I'll tell you. It
Yeah.
took me out a little bit.
Yep.
I am somebody that really likes to get immersed in a story, really, really connect with the characters. The interstitial podcast shows made the writing feel a bit choppy. And I was annotating as
Yep.
I was reading this because I had both the audio and the print. And I was like making note of all these new townspeople because I didn't know who was going to be important. And I'm like, oh my God,
Mhm.
okay, well, this is this one. And I did get, like you said, you said yesterday, or am I lost in the sauce? So I feel like
Yeah.
I did get lost in the sauce a little bit, trying to
Yes.
figure out, okay, who will be important? Because you get to, he names every person. Well, a lot of people that live in the compound, a lot of people that are in the
Mhm.
town. Once I watched that video and figured out who the main players were, I was set. I was good to go. I also thought the audio started really strong. I love Jay's narrator, Exie Sands. Oh my gosh, her voice is
Mhm.
incredible. But when the male narrator tried to do the female voice, when he would do Jay's voice, it made me
She
itchy.
sounded so whiny.
I put sing-songy. She's like,
Yeah.
Okay, Roy, why don't you come on this way? I'm
Yeah,
like,
which
that is
that's
not how
not her
people sound.
character.
No,
And it
not
was
at
especially
all.
not yeah, it was
Yes.
especially not her, like, she was so kind of, like,
Yes.
rigid and badass, and I don't know if
Yes,
we
she
can say
was a
that, but
great character. She was
yeah.
great. But yes, when the male narrator specifically, not to criticize him, but when those two characters would interact and the male narrator was narrating, he made her like almost like meh, kind of girly and sillier than I
Mm-mm.
think she was. But anyway, super nitpicky. I just had to get it out in the world because I was like, this is making me bonkers.
Yeah, not the best.
Not the best. Overall, I think the beginning was strong. The middle, I kind of
Mhm.
got a little lost. The ending, I think, is really strong. I loved the ending. Overall, I landed at 4 because I didn't feel that emotional punch that I needed. I wonder if I had this really kind of closer connection to what happened in real life. If I had known about it, I probably would have enjoyed it even more. And I said a tentative 4 because oftentimes when we do these community reads, my viewpoints switch, either good, bad. We get to see others' point of view. And so I don't think it's a bad thing, though, to have your rating switch based on discussion with other people, because sometimes they can open up your mind and maybe point out things you didn't quite understand. So it will
Agreed.
be very fun to unpack this with our patrons tonight. Anything else to add on We Burn Daylight?
Nope, I had the exact same thoughts that you did. I kind of wanted a little bit more of that emotional punch,
Hmm.
and that is also, I think, what kept me from giving it that full 5, but I did
Yeah.
think that it was a solid story. I thought that it was interesting, and that ending was definitely the last hour and a half of the audiobook
Yeah.
really had me compelled and engaged with the story, and I wish the whole book had been a little bit more like that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I felt very similarly to how you did.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that was our August community read, We Burn Daylight by Brett Anthony Johnston. We'll keep things moving right along. I mentioned annotating the We Burn Daylight book, but today we're talking all things book annotation, and I'm so
Mhm.
excited to do that. Before we dive in, I want to talk a little bit about what that is in case you're like, what are you talking about, book annotating? And book annotation, of course, is the process of adding notes to a text, whether that is writing in the book itself, having a book journal. I think you could argue that that works,
Yeah, I would say
but
that that would count.
yeah, the goal is to help you better understand, remember, and react to things that you are reading. I've seen it called close reading, immersive reading, depending on what you're doing. And it is the act of highlighting, underlining, writing in the margins, writing on a bookmark, tabbing, or a combination of all of the above. I tend to vacillate. I don't think that I am the biggest annotator in the world. I would love to be. Of course, in a perfect world, I'm sitting there with my book. I've got my stack of supplies. I'm writing, I'm highlighting, I'm tabbing, and like, oh, I love that experience. Doesn't always
Mhm.
happen because, we're reading on the go sometimes, but in my mind, that's what it would look like. What's your history with book annotating?
So I have been annotating or enjoyed annotating for a really long time. I used to even do it with my like for non-pleasure reading, even
Oh, yeah.
academically in school.
Hmm.
I color coded like all of my stuff mostly because I thought that it was fun, and school a lot of times it mattered to me to do well in school, but a lot of times what we were learning was not interesting. So this
Yeah.
helped me find an interesting way to like engage with what I was learning about, and that really helped and actually made me enjoy school. And that was kind of how I started doing it. And I would say that I started that like in high school.
Hmm.
And then as I started reading more for pleasure again in college, I started annotating my pleasure reading again because I knew that I enjoyed it with academic text. And a lot of times at the time, I was reading a lot of like classic literature, even for fun. And so a lot of times there are like a ton of themes or a ton of characters or like sentences that you need to unpack and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I started like pre Bookstagram or pre, talking about books online. And then I kind of fell away from it for a while and I started doing it again. I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago. And my process has definitely evolved since then, but that's kind of when I started picking it back up because I was reading so much more starting in 2020.
Hmm.
And I was like, I need to find a way to like engage with my books more and remember and actually have some retention here. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, that's kind of my long story of
No,
my
that's
history of annotating.
so it's interesting. So you did pick it back up. Obviously, it was something that you enjoyed, but you picked it back up with the hopes of sort of remembering more about what you read as it
Yes.
connected to posting videos online.
Yep. And just talking about books online and for my own enjoyment as well. I mean, I
Hmm.
hate sometimes my lack of memory with a
Yeah.
book, especially. I think, I'm in a season where I listen to a lot of audio. And so I think that although I can't really read a ton in print anymore, it's hard for me to remember things as well on audio. And
Yeah.
so this allows me to like, even when I'm listening, like I can bookmark things while I'm listening. And if I have the physical book, I can go back and kind of like highlight favorite passages and things like that. So that even if I'm listening, which is a season of my life that I'm in, I have to listen to get any reading done. I can still kind of go back and have that more personal connection with the text after my kids go to bed or in the evenings when I have my free time, etc. And it just kind of helps me not only remember but also be able to kind of come back to something that I really enjoy doing and engage with it when I'm not on the go.
That is so smart. It never once occurred to me to bookmark as I'm reading an audiobook so that I can come back to it. That is brilliant. You also
Yeah.
reminded me I do the same oftentimes in the moment
Yeah.
when I'm reading, if it's ebook, whatever, and I know I have the print and I want to annotate later, I'll just fold a page
Yep.
down or a little corner, or I will highlight in my e-reader and then I could later on annotate again in the physical text.
Yeah.
I am such a writer in my books. I love note taking in general. I love notes. I'm like a big note taker, whatever it is, meetings, what have you. So I still have some of my books from high school English. And I'm like, oh, look at you. Like,
Oh, I
your
love
little doodles.
that.
It's really fun. I have a couple notes from friends back in the day, and I just
Oh.
love that. I got into annotation more recently. I honestly would say this year. I did it previously.
Mhm.
This year, I think I've done it a bit more because I focus on it. And it's something that I notice is something that I realize I really enjoy doing. So I'm trying to make more time for it. I think before I used to just underline and then I used to just
Mhm.
tab. And now I do a combination of both. What I find is that more often than not, I like to read and then go back and annotate because sometimes when I'm trying to let go of it, but like I'm pretty anal when it comes to the tabs. Like I want them to line
Mhm.
up. So I can't just throw them in there any old kind of way because it bugs my brain. So I do a little fold. I would prefer the fold and then unfold it later when I go back and annotate. This
Yep.
is really a reader problem that probably some of you
But it
understand.
looks nice, and it's
It
okay to
looks
like something
nice.
because it looks nice.
It's aesthetically pleasing. So
It
I would
is.
say, yeah, this year has been bigger for me. I use the tabbing method that you actually showed me. If we can find the original creator who made this
Yes.
video on TikTok, we can put it in our notes what they've done, and it's very hard to describe. So I will link to books where I've done this. Instead of putting the tab where the highlight is, they'll start at the top of the page and then just sort of go down in down the page. And then they'll go
Mhm.
back up, and then down. And it looks so cool. What happens is then all of your tabs line up when you're looking at the book. You still know what page to go to. And then what I do is I underline or highlight the passage that stuck out to me. And it's so freaking satisfying. At the end of our chat, we're going to share 3 books that, we specifically remember annotating. And 2 of mine were done in this new method that you showed me.
Yeah, I love hearing about people's annotation processes. I think that
Mhm.
it's so fun and such a fun way to see people's creativity too, because so many people do it differently. And I've seen, so many creators on TikTok like for example, share that annotation method with the tabbing, like the organized tabbing. I've seen some people say that they like underline quotes that they like and highlight character moments that they like or
Oh,
things like that. I would say that I don't have a super set system. I'm not
okay.
against having like a committed system. I just haven't found one that I like enough to completely commit to it for all of the books that I annotate. I tend to enjoy change and variety in my life in general. And so for me, when I annotate, I kind of just like choose my own adventure every time. And I'm like, am I going to have a key where I, have certain color tabs or highlighters for certain kinds of themes or topics that I want to annotate? Or am I just going to tab this one up and highlight anything I feel like? I kind of change it
Mm-hmm.
up depending too on the genre. With fantasy, I'm a little bit more anal with my annotating because there is so much to fantasy where it's like characters, world building, plot moments, etc. Especially, yeah, if there's a ton of characters and points of view or timelines, then it can get to where I really want to have a system with my annotating.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a romance book or something like that, then I typically am like you. I just read the book and I'll fold, moments that I like, and then I'll go back and just pick a color and tab willy nilly. I don't have too much of a system with that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I love hearing about people's process.
I do too. And I'm always like, what are you tabbing? Because I see some of these books, my
Hmm.
goodness, there's so many tabs.
I
I
know.
am more of a minimal. If you're this is a maximalist endeavor, I would argue. So I don't know if anybody can be considered a minimalist doing this. But when it comes to annotating, I don't annotate every single thing. I mainly stick to if I'm seeing a new name, I circle the name because I'm like, who the hell is this? Then sometimes on the side, I will write Roy is the main character or what have you, because my brain does not hang on to names very well. That
Hmm.
helps me out. And then I could, when I see the name again, I'm like, have we already met him? Oh, yeah, it's this shopkeeper or what have you. And then I underline most of the time quotes or else important, like, oh, shoot, this is like a critical moment. And I'm doing that quotes because I just love them and I like to look back at them. Critical moments is especially helpful when I'm doing book clubs. If I'm doing my favorite way to moderate a book club is if I've read the book recently and I've like highlighted and annotated it in a way where I can say, okay, and then this happened. What'd y'all think about this? And then this happened. So it helps my brain sort of stick to the main plot points. For me in the moment, it's almost harder to annotate because I'm like, what am I reading? Is this important? I'm not sure. I am not trained in literature. I did not take a single high school, or I'm sorry, a single college English class because, of course, I tested out of it and they're like, you don't need to take the classes that you're really good at, which is bad, but I digress. I try to take one in my adulthood so I can shut up about it.
Just for fun.
But I don't know what I'm looking for. Like when people say themes, I'm like, how do you how do you know? Like what do you mean a theme? But it's something I am constantly working toward and it's fun to still continue to learn after so many years of reading.
Yeah, and when we jump into our picks, I can share kind of a little bit more about my process for picking out themes or things that I want to discuss. I will say, like, when it comes to classic literature or more well known books, I seek that out and do research. I'm not necessarily someone who at this point in my reading career can pick those things out on my own, but I like them and I enjoy them. And it's
Mhm.
important to me to do it. And so that's where I look for other people to help, maybe even
Yeah.
English teachers or things like that. So I care about those things, but I, like you, am not a, literary critic who can just,
No,
oh, I've noticed this theme
I
throughout
know.
this book.
That makes me feel better that
Yeah,
I'm not just missing
no, especially
in
the only time that I've ever been able to do that myself is when I reread Station 11 for like the fifth time. I was finally able to like, oh my
because you
gosh, wow, this
yeah.
keeps coming up. But it's
Hey,
because
well,
I've
there's
read
a
it a
case
million
for
times.
rereading. There's a case for
Yeah.
rereading, actually. So that's a really good point.
And Tina and I will share in our show notes our Amazon storefront for favorite products that we use while we're
Mhm.
annotating. I know I definitely have my tried and true products that are my most preferred for annotating. And Tina, I'm sure you have some of those too. So we will put those in our storefront and link that here so that if you would like to use some of the products that we like and you want to start annotating, you can have a place to start.
Yes, I'm not overly particular. I was trying to decide. I'm like, do I have favorite pens? Do I have favorite highlighters? I have ones when I come across them in my home. I'm like, yay, it's my pen I like. But my
Yes.
problem with annotating is I lose the stuff. So I'll start with like one and then I'm like, where's that one pen or that one highlighter? And then I can't find it. And then I get sassy about it. We do want to share some of our featured books, three of our, books that have memorable annotation experiences. And I will tell you, my first one is the first book in recent history, not like in high school, that I can remember annotating. And it's A Little Life by Hanya
Mm,
Yanagihara. And I just picked it up this morning. And I knew there wasn't very much in it, not very many things that I annotated or underlined. I read this when my gosh, probably early when it first came out, just about. So it's been a long time. I remember what I did with this is stick book darts in them. And I like book darts. They are little metal sort of tabs that you can insert into your book. They look super nice and flat when you close the book. And what I like is they have a point. So you can actually put the book dart into the point of the page that you want to remember. I could still quote some of the areas today that I wanted to hang on to for that book. I was going through it and I thought, oh, I kind of want to reread it maybe someday and go in and really, really annotate. Cause I feel like that's one where you've got some themes you could pull out pretty easily and a
oh, for
lot of
sure.
you know, lots of stuff to unpack there.
This is my annotated
Oh
copy of
my
A Little
gosh.
Life, which is not one of the ones that I was
See?
bringing, but I'm showing Tina my tabs, and
Uh-huh.
it's messy, but I don't mind it. I remember again, I remember reading this, and so I kind of like seeing the
Wait a
messy.
minute. I was going to say that's actually kind of visually appealing to me. I like that
Yeah,
messy sort of end product. Look at you. Oh,
I had no rhyme or reason with this one, but and that was back in 2020 when
yeah.
I kind of was just getting back at it, but
Ah, okay.
yeah, but that's a great one. That's a great one. And I obviously annotated that one too. So if you haven't read that one yet,
Oh my
might
gosh.
be a good one to start your
That's one of the
annotation journey on.
that's one of the frequent flyers mentioned on Book Talk, etc. Renee loves that book.
Hmm.
So we've definitely talked about her many times. And if you want to get your heart broken, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have kind of complicated feelings about the book,
Hmm.
but I think that it's definitely one worth unpacking and
Yes.
annotating and stuff for sure. So, my most annotated book I already mentioned, and that is Station 11.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
I've reread this quite a bit. And this is a book that not only is my most annotated, but I got so nerdy with this the last time I did it. There is a teacher on YouTube who like completely unpacks this book in like chapter segments on little episodes on YouTube. This teacher has like, I'm sure it was just for her class, like 30 views on these videos, but I really liked the way she unpacked this book. And I went through her whole like course on it. And a lot of the points that she made, I like added to my annotations and
Oh,
stuff.
well, you're going to have to link to that lady's course if you can
Okay.
find
Okay, I
it.
will. I will link to it if I actually, yeah, I'll make a note right now to link to it. But this is when I started one of my favorite annotation methods where I forget where I saw someone do this, but I loved it. And I was like, I'm going to do this for Station 11 because it's one of my favorite books. And that is favorite moments of the book, putting your tabs up at the top
I
instead
was wondering
of
I
on
was
the
going to ask you
side.
what the things at the top are.
Yep. So the
Okay.
things at the top are like my favorite, like maybe all time favorite quotes, or maybe something where like, oh, the whole plot and the whole point of the book came together in this moment. And so that's a really big part. So I do that with all of that is a system that I've carried through all of my annotated books is favorite moments. I put my tabs up at the top of the book instead of the
Oh, I love that. I was going to ask you that question. What the heck is at the top? Like, why is
side.
it different? I thought maybe different, like part one, two, three, four, or
Oh,
something like
yep.
that, but I like that.
Key moments. Yes.
Key moments. Okay. My next one that I love the annotation experience of is a recent read, and this was What Happened to Nina by Dervla McTiernan. And I'm actually really excited. So I remember where I was. I was on an airplane. I was flying from, I think it was New York back home to Chicago. And I annotated this book and I did the thing that I love. I was in the moment annotating because I was on a plane. I had nothing else to do. But I was like doing
Mm-hmm.
the organized in line annotating. And I'm saying I'm excited because we're doing my in person book club. That's our book club pick for September. So I'm
Ooh.
really curious to see. I read this back in, I want to say April. So I'm curious to see how well it helped me retain key moments and if it's going to help me moderate this book club. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Wow. I sound really nerdy.
No, I absolutely love it. I am really excited to read this. Thrillers I've really been struggling with them lately, but I just really don't want to give up on the genre because every once in a while there's that one that's so
Yeah.
good. And I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those ones for me. And so I'm really wanting to pick it up because I know that it does some different things with the genre. And I know so many people love it.
It's really, really worth it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you'll like it, I have to say.
Yeah, I think I will too. Okay, so one of my most annotated books is one that it's one of those books where I'm like, has anybody else ever read this book? Because I feel like I'm the only person that's ever
Maybe.
read it or recommended it. And that's Little Universes by Heather Demetrios. And it's a young adult book. Look at these tabs. I used like paper tabs and they all
Yes.
got bent. And I've almost gone through and re-annotated it so many times because they really are like messy and unattractive. But I also have like an endearing memory with it because I don't know.
You
I haven't.
cannot re-annotate. You can't
I
replace those. Those
know
are iconic.
they're iconic. They're
It's very
literally
sweet.
paper. They're paper tabs that just have gotten completely bent across the book. But yeah, Little Universes by Heather Demetrios. If you like YA books and if you like books about family and sisterhood, this is a really like sad but also hopeful. It just deals with harder and more complex young adult topics about sisterhood and adoption, and there is some drug use and content in here, but also just coming of age. I would definitely recommend this one. I absolutely loved it, and it's one of my most annotated books, and that's Little Universes by Heather Demetrios.
I've never seen that book cover in my entire life, so
Yeah.
I feel like you may have created it on your own. No, I'm sure
I
people
feel
are
that way
listening.
sometimes.
People are listening and nodding like, "Yes, finally someone's talking about this."
And she has some I feel like she's an author that used to be a little bit more popular. Like I want to say when I first started watching like BookTube back in 2015 or 16 when there were only a handful of people doing it at the time, I saw a couple of her other YA romances. I'm trying to think of the names of them right now and I can't think of them, but I do remember some of her other books being popular, but then that one came out in 2020 and I've just never heard anybody talking about
No,
it.
I have not seen that.
So,
Mine you have seen because again,
yeah.
my most annotated book is The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton,
Ah,
which is,
yes.
a book that I am obsessed with. But I
Mhm.
swear to you, this book, I listened to the audio, I had the print with me, and I sort of was loosely highlighting as I went along. Then I remember I don't know why I did this, but I had started annotating it and I think I wanted to finish annotating. I was like, "Oh, no problem. You have your little, your little folds. Just go ahead and go back in. It'll take no time at all." I was so into this book that I was rereading it. I literally reread about half of it
I
for
love
the
that.
bulk of it. It was so satisfying and it was early in the morning. I'm like, "I'm really enjoying my life right now." Like I had such a good time and there's so much to unpack with that book. It's kind of I have to say, and maybe it's been a while since I've read Station 11, but I feel like Station 11 and The Light Pirate would be friends in a way.
Yeah, for
So I'm
sure.
wondering, it's one of those books I could easily see myself rereading and going back in for.
Yeah, for sure. I would really like to reread The Light Pirate at some point as well. And I just
Mm,
love how much you love that book, especially because
I
it was a
love it.
DNF at first.
I know it was a DNF at
What a
first. And actually,
surprise.
fun fact, I do have a book today that I loved that I initially DNF'd. So that just goes to show,
Sometimes you just got to come back to it at the right
gotta be,
time.
gotta come back to it. With that, let's hop into the books that we are bringing today. We're talking about, these are books that we did annotate when we were reading them. And I'll tell you about my process. It's not vastly different from what I described earlier, but the first book that I want to talk about today is Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. And this book is dark. Okay, so know that off the bat,
Mhm.
every trigger warning possible. Just go in knowing that. It takes place over the course of one weekend, which I really like books when they do that. And it's set in the elite underbelly of a Nigerian city. It starts with a breakup. There's a party that goes totally awry. And then there is a tangled web of sex and lies and corruption that leaves no one unscathed. Again, you start out with this couple, Ama and Kalu, and the male is driving the female to the airport. She's leaving Nigeria, going back, I think, to the UK because they've broken up over a disagreement. And you're feeling that with them, and you're hearing it's sort of this omniscient narration. So you're getting both sides to the story. Kalu is reeling and he thinks that Emma is gone. So he visits his friend Ahmed. He hosts these really, really high profile, dark sex parties. His friend does. And Kalu typically doesn't go, even though he always gets the invite. Finally, he decides, okay, let me go ahead and go. And while he's there, he makes a decision that plunges everything into chaos. You also meet two Nigerian sex workers who are visiting Nigeria from Kuala Lumpur, where they live. And they intersect with these friends as everything goes to hell, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all you need to know. You are in the city's corrupt underworld, and all of them are looking for ways to escape the trouble that they have created. This has themes of power, sexual violence, betrayal, and it has a really, really exciting conclusion that makes you feel a certain kind of way. This book is very hard to recommend, although I do recommend it to the right reader. It is one that I could not stop reading. It is dark, it's twisted, it's corrupted, but also fascinating. And I was reading this thinking, this doesn't exist, right? Please tell me these types of things don't exist. Yet I know they do. I'm not naive enough to assume that nothing like this exists. It was almost like watching a car crash in a way where you're like watching and you're seeing the characters headed toward this disaster and you don't want it to happen, but you're like, I think it's going to.
Mm.
And Little Rot is a very apt title for this story. My best comp for this, it's a hard one, right? It's a hard book to recommend. My best comp that that sort of came to my mind was Ashley Winstead's Midnight is the Darkest Hour,
Mm.
which is also a book that made me wildly uncomfortable. I didn't like that one that much. I liked Little Rot a lot better for the writing and some of the themes, but I think those two are similar. I am so impressed, though. I'm walking away very, very impressed with Imezi's range. They write in YA, they write literary fiction, they write romance, messy romance, they write contemporary. And I will continue to read everything that they put out. I think this is my third book by them. I've loved them all. They're all very, very different. I think that if you are a reader who likes dark, who likes complex, gritty stories, and if you like reading about flawed characters who get backed into a corner, this would work for you. It's Little Rot by Ikweki Imezi.
Ugh, you did such a good job with that.
Really?
And you
Okay.
100% sold me on it.
Yeah.
This is one that I was on the fence about whether or not I wanted to read it. And I'm not on the fence anymore. I
Good. Okay. You're
100%
off the
want to read this.
fence.
Yes, I'm off the fence. I think this is a really good example. Of course, I'm saying that having not read it, but this seems like a book that would be a good example of how you and I, like our Venn diagram of interests, right? This one
Mm-hmm.
I feel like really sits in the middle there. And I'm excited to potentially read this soon and chat with you about it because it
Would
definitely
love
sounds,
to.
yeah, it sounds like one I
Because
would
I
really
haven't
like
talked to
to.
anybody yet about this one. So I don't know where other people are landing. I have no idea. But I'm
Yeah,
like, ooh,
I haven't
yeah.
either. I have seen some positive reviews, but maybe because of the subject matter, it's just that's hard to talk about,
It's like,
maybe.
oh, I loved this book. And you're like, you love
Right.
it because it makes you feel and it teaches you things and it's like hard to look away from,
Yeah.
but you don't love it you don't love that it exists, right? That it's based likely
Right.
on things that really
The
happen.
things that really happen. Yeah. Yeah. That's heavy stuff, but sounds really good.
I love that I'm like, it's dark, it's gritty, one of the darkest I've read this year. You're like, great,
Five
sign me up.
stars. Five
I'm
stars.
off the fence.
Okay.
Bring it to me. Great.
Well, I am bringing another, I will say heavier book, although definitely not the same subject matter. And this one is pretty small. It's a really short book. It's called Open Water by Caleb Azuma
Oh my
Nelson.
God. Yes,
Yeah,
finally.
I know. I was telling Tina last night, I've been sitting on this book for a few weeks, waiting for the perfect time to bring it. And I ended up annotating the crap out of it. I read
Hmm.
this book in print, which I'm so proud of myself for like sitting down and reading a freaking book in print. And I'm so glad that I did it with this one because I absolutely loved it. This is about two Black British artists, a photographer and a dancer, and they meet in South London and they form a pretty immediate connection. Despite their shared experiences at very elite private schools and their aspirations to succeed in London's artistic scene, their love story is complicated by societal pressures and personal fears, and even some personal trauma and grief as well. This book explores themes of race, masculinity, vulnerability, and delving into challenges faced by individuals who are often viewed solely from the lens of race or gender. It has really, really powerful prose and emotional intensity, which is like my catnip, and offers a really deeply moving and poignant exploration of love, loss, and the complexities of identity. On the sentence level, this is one of the most beautiful books that I have ever read. I can't even articulate how captivated I was with the author's ability to just like reach into me and affect me so quickly. I have never gotten teary or emotional after page one of a book. And
What?
I have never, like you, because to me, in order to feel emotional, I typically need to feel connected to the characters first before I can feel anything. But this book had me grabbing tissues after the first page. I finished page one and I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I can make it through this book,
Oh my
but I
gosh.
did. I loved it. I think this might be my most highlighted book ever. There are highlights, underlines, and tabs on almost every single page. The way the author describes falling in love and grief and just the beauty and fragility of humanity was really concisely powerful, which is my favorite kind of writing. I really loved the use of second person narration here. I feel like you never see that in literature. This even made second person narration creative. It was different than anything I've ever read. And it worked really well. I think I felt like I understood the main character's emotions so deeply because he was telling the story from the reader's perspective, which was just really unique and interesting. And I loved that use of craft here. The characters were so real and so flawed. They were carrying heaviness and grief because of their pasts and their trauma. And despite their fears and insecurities, they really yearned for love. And there was a lot of softness and tenderness there as well. And I really liked the juxtaposition between those two things. The author does delve into the main character's traumas that do include racism and police brutality. And although that's not, I would say, the main part of the book, it's definitely present. And he does it with such raw honesty that I really did feel that pain pretty viscerally. It was almost hard to read in parts. And I'm not usually deeply affected by content like that. I've never experienced anything like that either. And it really is a testament to the author's incredible talent that he can evoke such a profound emotion from something that I've certainly never experienced before, but is something that is really important for readers to know and kind of gain that new lens from. And so I appreciated his ability to do that. This is definitely a love story. It's a beautiful book. It has hard things in it, but those are like, the magical potion of all things that I love. So this is a new 5+ star favorite for me. And that is Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson.
Bye. I'm on Pango Books buying
I
up
was like, is
the
she shopping on there?
Hell yeah, I'm shopping. There's 2 copies. One of them's about to be mine. That sounds so good. It's been on my TBR for ages, and
So good.
it sounds like completely up my alley. I love second person narration as well. So, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, good job selling that because
Thank you. Look at us.
I simply must. There's no question about it. I
Oh,
must own it and I must annotate it and
yeah.
go through that experience
Oh
as
my gosh, I
well.
annotated every page.
I'm like,
I
oh, it made you cry on page 1. Say less. Got
say
it.
less. I after that first page, I was like, well, this is going on the annotation episode. It's not for
Uh-huh.
4 more weeks, but we're just gonna have to save it. So
You knew it. Oh
I
my
knew it.
gosh. Okay.
Well, what is your next pick? Are we keeping in line with the dark
Yeah.
themes here?
N
Okay.
let's find out.
Okay.
The, the next book for me is The Safe Keep by Yael Vander Wooden.
Ooh.
I loved it, folks. Spoiler,
Oh,
it's 5 stars
yay.
from me. And this is the one I was talking about earlier where I said I DNF'd it initially, came back in a different format and loved it. I started it on audio. I was like, what's happening here? Did the print. Excellent.
Hmm.
This is an exhilarating, twisting tale. Okay, you know what? No, it's not exhilarating. I will go ahead and cut myself off right there because it's not exhilarating. It is quiet And it's like unpeeling a little onion, a little baby onion you got to stick with. But it is a tale of desire, suspicion, and obsession between two women who are staying in the same Dutch countryside during the summer of 1961. And this book is on the Booker long list, and it was for me, which is so
Hmm.
exciting. So
Always
again,
surprising ourselves.
I know. You're set in 1961 in a rural Dutch province, and bomb craters have been filled. It's shortly after, they're still sort of rebuilding things after World War II. Things are being constructed, but the war is truly over. You have Isabel, who is living alone in her late mother's country home, and she loves her life the way it is. Everything is where it should be. It's led by routine, it's led by discipline. But all of this is upended when her brother Louis brings in his graceless new girlfriend, Ava, leaving her at Isabel's doorstep as a guest to stay for the season. Isabel's like, gosh, she has no interest in this, yet she has no way to say no. So she has to let this woman live with her for the next several weeks. And Ava is Isabel's antithesis. She sleeps late. She walks loudly through the house. She touches things she shouldn't. Her roots are showing. Everything Ava does is pissing Isabel off. And in response, she develops a fury fueled obsession with her. And when things start disappearing around the house, a spoon, a knife, a bowl, Isabel's suspicions begin to spiral. Isabel's paranoia gives way to infatuation, leading to a discovery that unravels everything Isabel has ever known. It's so wonderful. In the beginning scenes, you're meeting with Isabel and her brother and his new girlfriend and her other. So it's Isabel, her two brothers, and the girlfriend. She has this piece of pottery, and Isabel is obsessed with knowing about this pottery. She wants to know why a piece is broken, why it's in the garden. And she's way more interested in this dang broken dish than she is in the woman. It's kind of funny because she is so acerbic. She's so rude to this woman to the point of cruelty. And yet I was like titillated. I don't know why. I was like, "Oh my god, you're being so rude." But it was you come to find out that's part of Isabel's character. And again, this one took me once you get to that dinner for me, I was set. I loved how prickly she was and she had some epic one-liners. It's a simple story
Ooh.
though. There's not a ton of action here. You are truly following Isabel this whole time. You're not completely in present day because you do get some flashbacks to when she and her brothers came to the house, to their childhood, and you get to know about some of her relationship with her brothers. And at the beginning, Ava's just this intruder when you don't know anything about her. But as the book goes on, you get more and more knowledge about her. I loved it. If you like quiet stories, this is incredibly well written. It's a
Hmm.
debut. It taught me about an area of the world that I knew nothing about. It's historical fiction and it certainly has that tie in. But for me, it was about these two women and how it's almost like a cat and mouse game, how they danced around each
Mhm.
other. I highly recommend it. I loved this book. It's The Safe Keep by Yael van der Wooden.
I think I would really like this. And it sounds kind of like the book Cursed Bread by Claire McIntosh. I don't know if that one came out last year and it had that same premise, right? Like the cat and mouse between two women, this obsession. But
Yeah.
that one fell really flat. And this one sounds like it was really fleshed out and the characters were like very, to your point, acerbic and
Hmm.
real and had a
Hmm.
lot of presence on the page.
They do. Yes.
And this sounds like the book that I was looking for when I read
Ah,
that one. And so, gosh, you're selling me on
I'm
all the
selling
books
you today.
today.
I live to do that. I love that.
Literally what we love to do. Well, I
Literally
am,
love it.
oh, cute. Punny. Lit. Really?
Oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. Geez,
Oh
I
my
was just
gosh.
making
So
sounds.
naturally funny.
Shut up.
Okay, I'm going to take us on a complete left turn.
Fine,
I'm giving
let's
us
go.
something so sweet, it's saccharine. And that is The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer.
Ah, yes.
This is a book inspired by C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. This is a really lovely and fantastical story that follows two childhood friends, Jeremy and Rafe, who have mysteriously vanished in a West Virginia state park. And then 15 years after their return, Jeremy has become a world renowned missing persons investigator. And then Rafe they're not communicating anymore. He's become a reclusive artist, and the two of them end up having to reconnect to confront the traumatic truth behind their disappearance. Jeremy knows that they have spent 6 months in this magical realm filled with beauty and danger and adventure, but he has kept this secret from Rafe, and we don't know at the start of the story why. But then a young woman comes into Jeremy's life. A new client whose missing sister turns out to be someone pretty important that they know from this hidden realm. So their stories collide. Jeremy and Rafe are then forced to return to the enchanted realm to confront their past and reclaim everything that they have lost since they left. So I really loved this book. I decided to annotate it about 15% in. This is one of those ones that I was listening to on audio and I just kept being like, oh, I love that. Or, oh, that was so smart. Or, oh, what a sweet character moment. And so I had the physical copy that I had gotten from the publisher and I decided to bookmark the moments that I really liked in my audiobook. And, or like as I was cleaning, I would like look to see what chapter I was on and then run to my book and like tab it really quick and then go back to
Yeah.
my cleaning. So very chaotic, but, and I haven't gone back on this one to like highlight everything. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I loved some of these quotes and thoughts and messages and sweet character moments. Like I mentioned, I am a character driven reader, and this includes relationships and friendships in my books. And so, if I notice a lot of great banter or tender moments between characters or really great dialogue in any capacity, I like to annotate that so I can turn back to those character moments and remember them. I loved Jeremy and Rafe's conversations and their scenes together in general. And I thought the banter between Emily, who's this other character in the book, I thought that the relationship between Emily and Jeremy was really great as well. This book was so nostalgic and would make a great addition to a recent episode that we recorded for our patrons, where we recommended books in which people return home. Because this Lost World was definitely home to Jeremy and Rafe, and that's very clear in the story. And I loved that. This book is definitely, like I said, saccharine, but I didn't mind. I thought that it was a great ode to us lifelong readers who have been escaping into fantastical worlds since we were little with flashlights under the covers. And this book definitely does feel a little young adult. So if that's something that will turn you off, this might not be a great fit for you. But if you're looking for something tenderhearted and magical with found family that nods to those classic fantasy novels that you loved as a kid, I highly recommend reading The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer.
Oh, that's a great way to describe that book. And I could totally see what you mean with that experience of reading to escape as a kid and, reading
Yes,
under the covers. So,
definitely brought me back to that.
I mean, we have an episode that's pretty chock full of great recommendations today.
I
Not that we don't
agree.
always, but sometimes we're like, it was fine, this and that. I'm like, today I feel very
Kind of loved
excited.
everything that we
I
brought.
know, me too.
Yeah.
So let's hope that our shelf editions continue the trend if we ever get to them. And I see from Hannah's face that she does not have a shelf edition. So we're
It's
going to
okay. I'm going to find one. I'm going to grab one on the go. You go
get
ahead.
a legit shelf edition. I will tell you about mine. It is one I just purchased yesterday, and it's called Here One Moment by Diane Moriarty. And I got it as an add-on for book of the month. I knew nothing about it. I didn't care. I like this author's writing, and I wanted to give it a shot. And the question is, if you knew your future, would you try and fight fate? If you know me, you know that I'm scared of like fortune tellers and things. Like I don't want to make the wrong decision and somehow alter my current path. So this is a question I really struggle with as though
Mm.
it could really happen. So you have, aside from a delay, there will be no problems. The flight will be smooth. It will land safely. Everyone who gets off the plane will get off, but almost all of them will be forever changed. Because this ordinary, short domestic flight, something extraordinary happens on it. People learn how and when they're going to die. For some, their death is far in the future, age 103, and they laugh. But for 6 passengers, their predicted deaths are not far away at all. How do they know this? There were ostensibly more interesting people on the flight, the bride and groom, the jittery, possibly famous woman, etc., but none would become as famous as the Death Lady. Not a single passenger or crew member will later recall noticing her board the plane. She wasn't exceptionally old nor young, rude nor polite. She wasn't drunk or nervous or pregnant, and her appearance and demeanor were unremarkable. But what she did on that flight was truly remarkable. A few months later, one passenger dies exactly as she predicted. Then two more passengers die again as she said they would. Soon, no one is thinking of this simply as an entertaining story at a cocktail party. If you were told you only had a certain amount of time left to live, would you do things differently? Would you try to dodge destiny? Those are the questions that this book unpacks. I am scared. I don't know. I'm scared for many reasons. Will this author pull it off? Who's to say? To steal one of Hannah's phrases.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? This looks at free will. It looks at destiny, grief, and love. But I think this is going to be really interesting. If you just sit with and buy the premise, my goodness, she can come up with so much based on it. It's reminding me a little bit of The Measure, but it sounds like it's like
Mhm.
not as sci-fi.
Okay.
We will see. In the end of this sentence says Moriarty asks profound questions in her newest I can't wait to find out what happens novel. And it sounds like one of those where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to keep turning the pages. This does come out in September. It's called Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty.
I have seen positive reviews of this one so far.
Yes. I've
Yeah,
seen nothing. I actually didn't even know what it was about. I knew I didn't like the cover. It had butterflies on it. But other
yeah,
than that, I had no idea.
the cover looks like an early 2000s like Jodi Picoult book or
Oh,
something like that. Like it's giving older,
oh, excuse me.
isn't
It's
it?
giving. Yeah, it is.
No, I don't mean older like age. I just mean like older as in like trending design.
What is it called again? Here One Moment. Yeah, I don't love the title either because I guess it makes
It's
sense.
like gray, silver, and blue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a book of the month add-on.
Yeah. I understand why they did the butterfly because of like if the butterfly's wings flap,
Sure, and
blah
the
blah blah.
butterfly effect, and
Butterfly effect. It's also a little long. It's 512 pages. So anyway, I
yeah,
digress.
I've heard good things about it so far, and I will say she's an author that I don't like keep up with. Like when I see she has a new book coming out, I'm just kind of like, oh. But this one, like when you started setting it up, I was like, oh, wait, this sounds good though.
You're like, oh,
So,
okay, I'm with you.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I should like
I
keep up with
haven't
her books or something.
I used to read all of her books every year religiously, and then I did not like one of them and I never read her again. So I'm very excited
Oh,
to try and dive back in.
yeah, that's exciting. Okay. Well, I am bringing a book that I purchased and I bought this a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's probably my most newly purchased book that I got when I was just book browsing at Barnes and Noble. And I really want to try to read more historical fiction. This one was recommended specifically by Carly from She's Becoming Bookish. She reviews almost primarily historical fiction on both TikTok and Instagram. She's really
Oh,
sweet.
yes. Now I know
And
exactly who you're talking about. I bet
yes,
I know the book too. Show me.
The Sweet Blue Distance. She also
Mm,
loves still life. Like that's like her
yeah.
like number one
Yes.
recommendation. Yeah. But she is like the only person that I've seen talk about this book. But then when I looked it up, not only does it sound really good, but it also has really good reviews. It only has about 2,000 reviews on Goodreads, but it has like a 4.3 or 4.4 rating, which is really great. So yes, this is The Sweet Blue Distance by Sarah Donati. And this is an epic tale of survival, redemption, and love. It's about a young midwife who travels west to New Mexico territory to care for women in need and faces dangers more harrowing than the ones that she herself is fleeing. This is set in 1857, and this woman is in a bid to outrun her past. Our main character accepts a nursing position with a doctor in New Mexico territory. She knows the journey from New York to Santa Fe will not be easy, but she does relish an adventure. However, nothing could prepare her for the wilderness that she encounters. Its vastness and power are awe inspiring in both beauty and brutality. So she has to learn to rely on herself, on her travelers, and there is one enigmatic man in particular that she has to rely on. So I'm kind of hoping there's going to be a little bit of a romance there too, because I'm, a sucker for that. I can't help myself. This trip west ends up only being the beginning of Carrie's challenges. And this one sounds like it's going to have really vivid descriptions of the breathtaking Western landscape. It's going to have a lot of adventure. And I love stories that follow women and particularly midwives as well. So this sounds really good. It's called The Sweet Blue Distance by Sarah Donati.
Nice. All right, good. I'm glad that you're trying to focus a little bit on historical fiction because we both like it.
Yes, we'll see if I read it. It's chunky. She's
right.
like 600 plus pages. So, but I do have the audio also. So,
all right. That's it for today. We thank you for spending a part of your day with us. Links to all the books mentioned can be found in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can help us by following us wherever you listen and by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get our show out to new listeners and grows our audience. And don't forget, if you would like access to exclusive bonus content and community, you can join us for $5 a month on patreon.com/booktalk, etc.
If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at booktalk.etc@gmail.com. You can also connect with us both at Booktalk Etc. on Instagram and Tina at TBR Etc. and Hannah at Handpicked Books. Talk to you next week. And in the meantime, remember,
everything's better with books. Oh my God. Okay. Speaking of Carly, her book talk, she had this sweet video that she just goes on. It's a perfect book. Da 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 da. She was like talking about how she reads almost exclusively historical fiction and this and that. And I know who she is. We're I think mutual friends on whatever. And so I said, Carly girl, if you don't get to the point, tell me what this book is. And I was like joking. Poor thing. So many people were in her mentions, like, you need to get to the point quicker. You need to. I'm like, oh no, social people, the trolls have found her.
So mean. But the trolls have found her.
She handled it really, really well. The book that she was recommending is What the Wind Knows by
Amy Harmon.
Amy Harmon. Yes. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I tried reading it.
Okay.
And I did not finish it.
Okay. Your face is like not impressed, but your skin's glowing. Thanks for the cucumbers.
Thanks for the cucumbers.
Thanks, cucumbers.